I refresh this page, it will take a second, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about CloudFront Functions, which is the last little piece here, and kind of like how they're kind of different. The kind of core piece with CloudFront Functions is that they are much simpler. They can't call out to external things. They have a much shorter time they're allowed to run. They seem worse in every way, except like the number of concurrent ones that you can run is way higher, right? And so if you're really super worried about the throughput and you're hitting the limitations of Lambda at Edge, then CloudFront Functions are highly optimized versions of that can do less, but faster and more and stuff along those lines. That actually lives in CloudFront, not in Lambda. And you can go in here and see that as well. And here we can go create a function. Now the other caveat where I'm probably going to get burned in a second is where you can mix and match is problematic. Like if you, one of the other reasons you might want to stick with a Lambda Edge function in your CloudFront distribution is because you can't have like, you can only have one for each one of those: viewer request, viewer response, origin request, origin response. But sometimes you'll be like, well, you can't have a viewer request for one and a viewer response for the other, right? So like probably deploying both will be slightly problematic, but we'll play with that in a second. So here we'll say like smaller image, and we'll create the function. We'll at least have it so we can swap it out in a second. This looks relatively the same. Now, you might be like, I'm not writing var. I'm not writing var. I'm not doing it. You can't make me. I won't do it. You will do it, because it won't work if you try to use const or let. So like that's a thing that we need to keep in mind. So kind of just look at, it's got a bunch of limitations. It can only use certain limited subset of JavaScript, which is you kind of have to look at. It's got a few, you can't pull in any other libraries. It's got a few things for hashing, stuff along those lines, for parsing query strings. It's got, I think, most of the array prototype methods that you might want in modern JavaScript. Not the hot ones, but like, I think you've got like includes at least, right? So you have to do like index of and stuff along those lines. You get no file. It's not running Node effectively is what you need to know. It is running a JavaScript-like environment where you have access to basically, yeah, these global functions, that's it. These global constants, that's it. And like I said, just a few of the, give it the data types, a few of the array methods from ES6, one from ES7. And then mostly you're stuck with like ES5 for the rest of it, right? So just keep that in mind, and this is one where you definitely want to test early and often. But like we can theoretically, you can do stuff. Yeah, it's like, yeah, like you have apply. You don't have anything that like. So don't try to use the spread operator. Don't try to be fancy at all. You will break everything. But that said, yeah, again, what you lose in flexibility, you gain in performance in this case. Cool. So we have this one kind of in place here, as you can see. And let's see, do I have that code from before? Nope. Let's do it. We'll do it live. Live coding, I think I told you could break, should be fun, right? So here we've got, you can return a request and a response. We're probably not going to be able to deploy this one just yet, but you could say something like, nope. See, I started typing const. You're laughing. Var request equals event.request. And then we'll say if request.uri rewrite that. return the request. So this is similar to what we were talking about with the client-side routes. Hey, if it is notes or whatever, rewrite it to index.html. We'll let the caching happen, but we'll tell everyone it was successful, and then we can have errors for the real bad routes. Now, I'm pretty sure if I hit save, I can hit test, and I can kind of like show you like what would happen in that sense. So we got, let's say viewer request. Actually, is that one viewer request? Let me check. Let's try it out real quick. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I already have a function there as well. So we can see here's the request. Cool, everything kind of goes through with the output in this case. So that's good. I'm pretty sure I can't save it though right now because it's going to tell me you can't do it if you have the lambda at edge. Oh, that one did successfully publish. That's cool. So it was not that conflict. There's a table you can look at on which CloudFront functions play with which lambda at edge ones. I was doing this from memory. I don't have the table memorized. I've read it 100 times. I read it this morning. Still don't have it memorized. But we have that kind of in place. Now, we still have to check to see if it works because that went more smoothly than I was hoping. But let's go back, see our behaviors inside of that area right there where we want to edit it. Oh, we published it, but we didn't set it in this case. Awesome. So I think I want this as a viewer request, actually. So we'll save the changes. That might take a second to propagate, but yeah, you can see it's currently deploying. So our last kind of thing is let's just check to see. That should still be deploying, but this is the ability we're talking about. This would work with our client-side routes. It would also work if we saw earlier that we could see like CloudFront will tell if they are on a phone versus a smart TV versus a desktop computer. Like maybe we don't need to send them. It's weird because phones are getting big enough and their screens are so dense that like this is probably less true as time goes on. But maybe you don't need to send them a like 8K resolution image for their phone for the next like year or two until Android and iOS phones have like 8K screens on them somehow because physics doesn't exist. So I think a viewer request is right. I was kind of live coding that while I was talking, but let's go ahead and check it out. So if it's Beatles.jpg, we should swap it out. Yeah, I got to take a look at that one to see if it's actually getting hit, or it could also not have fully deployed yet. So that's also a fun idea as well. But the idea of like, you can look at the URI, rewrite it to another one as you check the origin source, and it will still work, allows us to have that 200 for known client-side routes, different images. The possibilities, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, there's the initial set that are like common, which is rewriting those URIs, so on and so forth. Then there's the parts kind of specific to your application, which will like hit you in a week and stuff along those lines, or possibly in 6 months now. You're like, oh, we could just solve for that doing this. And that's kind of the major point that I want to get, is that like you can program the CDN to do what it is that you want. So that's the kind of, those are all the pieces that we put in place when we're building the system that, like I kind of joked, I think during the break, like has its bumps in the road when you're implementing it. But like once you get all these pieces in place, your headers are secure, your client-side routes are in place, you're distributed all around the world, like this even like we were talking about it and kind of live doing it. Now like kind of once you get that process down, you can basically own this relatively inexpensive infrastructure that is a highly performant application platform for getting your code out to your customers that solves a lot of the core problems. And like, again, I mentioned this a second ago, but we were talking about before, like it is a lot of a set it and forget it kind of thing too, right? Like a lot of this infrastructure, I no longer work at the company, right? And we iterated on it time. We didn't do this all at once. We started out with just, our index.html was still in the Rails app at first because like it was being served by Rails. And then the next version of the app a year later, when we could kind of like move it out to a fully React app, then we moved the index.html to CloudFront. That's when we had to worry about the invalidations. Then later, we split into multiple teams, and we actually used the Lambda at Edge to say, okay, in our, we used BuildKite instead of GitHub Actions, but like on every pull request, move a version of that app into a directory inside of a bucket so we could have a staging environment for every single pull request so that different teams could test their code independently, would then have all the tests run on a merge into main before it got deployed. So a lot of this stuff we incremented slowly over time, but as we tried out different things, kind of just set it, put it in place, and forgot about it. I'm going to see if my thing deployed yet and if I got it right. Oop. It definitely deployed. All right, let's see what we got. Let me go into Chrome where I can debug it just a little bit better. So it's a 200. There's no response data. So I definitely messed something up. Give me a second. I'll go take a look. And then we'll do some questions. And then we'll hopefully end on a high note. Or you'll watch me look at it again, stare at it, squint, find out, did I use a const? It didn't blow up. So I definitely didn't use a const or a let or some kind of JavaScript from the last 5 years. But we'll go take a look in a second. Let me just check the kind of previous version as well. Oh, the other interesting thing that you can do with these is, let's say you don't want to deploy an entire backend, but like cores for an API you want to hit, it's technically a server, right? That Node.js running, you could also rewrite the headers and do stuff along those lines if you're just trying to hit an API, but you have cores blocking around it as well. There's again, these small little things that you can do that kind of add up to solve problems is super, super useful. All right, so I'm going to go into my function. Let's see what we got. Where did I make it? Oh, this doesn't look. Did it not save? That'll do it, right? OK, so everything worked, just not the way that I wanted to. That's why I was getting a blank page, because it was sending a blank 200 status code. Apparently, I just did not save that previous version. And so the code was working. It just wasn't the code that I wanted. The other fun fact, you could have multiple CloudFront distributions pointing at the same bucket. Maybe you call one staging, hypothetically. So I'll take that code from earlier. That was the code that we wrote together. Save the changes. You know what I did? I probably went directly to test, and then I went to publish, and I didn't hit that save button. And at no point did it go like, you have something different in the editor than what you plan on publishing. All right, so that should go out. Can I get like, oh, it's up there. There's a banner. I gotta make sure my browser cache isn't part of the problem too. So bring this into Chrome. There it is. There's my smaller picture of the Beatles. Right, so this one on the fly, we rewrote the image to pick up a picture of Oasis instead. Don't at me. So yeah, we can rewrite stuff, render different resources. So not only is this they were really angry in that picture. Not only is this a different file, we rewrote the request and got a different resource, a smaller resource based on whatever you need to do or whatever you want to do. You can program all the things, redirect stuff, basically like redirect the flow of time and requests and change stuff on the fly, and have a lot of the stuff you would normally need to spin up a server for accessible to you as a front-end engineer. And not actually, the nice part is, again, once you get that stuff in place, the updating, security patches, all that stuff are handled for you by Amazon, right? So now you can have a whole bunch of functionality that you might have, one of the places I've used this in other projects is sometimes I don't get the APIs that I want. And so you can kind of move some of that logic to kind of like normalize and flatten your APIs so you're not doing it client side. That can also kind of live kind of on that, or just one.